Welcome back to the Nuttycast, Season 2, on location. Well, this time we're in a little bit of a different location. We're live from the Indian Valley Public Library, of course, community room. And it's a lovely setting. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you may have noticed that we have a much more professional than usual setup here. And that's because I am interviewing today two real-life filmmakers. Wow. Please welcome Dave and Kathi Peters, my good friends. We met at the Renew Community years ago. And I was thinking back because I think our businesses started around the same time.
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close.
Nutty was about 2012-ish, 2013. What about Global Story Films?
2012, really. The first part of January of 2012 was kind of when we went all in.
As I was thinking back, and I was feeling like we had some house church commiserations together.
Yeah,
we were trying to get started.
So, yeah, indeed.
Take us back to the early days. Like, what was it like? First of all, what is Global Story Films? What do you guys do, and what was it like in the early days getting this thing started?
Our company is called Global Story Films. That name is really rooted in part of our mission. We wanted to tell the story in the global sense. Mm-hmm. So we've done films anywhere from India to China to Africa to Central America. We've been to Cuba and Canada.
Ireland,
yeah.
It is St. Patrick's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day,
anyway.
And we have a great documentary called St. Patrick Pilgrimage to Peace. I just posted it today on Facebook. But we were there 3 times to film that. And it was, learning about him was fascinating. So I've been a career filmmaker. I picked up a camera when I was in 6th grade and 12th grade, started making movies with my dad's Super 8 camera. And thought, wow, maybe I could make a living doing this. So my dad helped me go to film school, where I have a bachelor's and master's, and that's where I met Kathi at film school. So we got married, and I've worked primarily for other people most of my career. I worked for the Air Force. I've worked at 3 different churches as a media pastor. Then in 2008, I left the staff of a church. We actually tried launching another business, which didn't work out. We actually owned a restaurant in 2005. 20 years ago, we were wrestling with owning a restaurant, which was, that's a whole podcast if we were going to unpack that.
Yeah.
So we've had our share of business failure, to say the least. So those were costly business excursions. So when we started our business in 2011, 2012, we basically sold everything. So we would have super low overhead. We lived with friends for 10 months that invited us to come and live, and we'll basically let you live rent-free.
That's another whole podcast, too.
Yeah.
I tell you what. Yeah.
That had its ups and downs, as you can imagine, sharing a house with someone. It was a big house. But there was a mother-in-law that was there, which that's another aspect of the story. She loved me, but didn't like Kathi too much.
It's going to take everything I can to not just do 40 minutes on that.
Yeah.
Another podcast.
So we launched the business, and it was against the advice of a friend that we were leaning on for help. We thought, well, whatever Rich says, we'll do. And he said, look, you guys, you don't have any capital, you're in debt. This isn't a good time to start a business. But, I was in my early 50s and thought, well, if it's not now, when? So that's when we just sold everything and went all in. And Kathi, maybe you can talk about the early days of being all in with me and how you joined me in doing film work.
Yeah,
Kicking and screaming?
No.
Well, more so feeling like, what do I really have to bring to the business? So I was a school teacher, and so didn't really feel like I knew much about cameras, or didn't really know anything about making a film other than living with David and watching him do it. So it was struggling through the realization that I wasn't a filmmaker by trade, but that I had certain giftings that I could bring to the business. And so, that was tough. So the crazy part is where we started, working with or making films for local organizations that are nonprofits and faith-based organizations. And the advice to us was they have no money. So, so which was really hard. So, but you don't land a bunch of corporate clients as a brand new business typically. So we started there. And it was, those types of organizations are very dear to our hearts. We really feel that God has a heart for the underserved, the orphan, the poor, and then that hence a lot of our work around the world. But even locally here, I mean, we live in a very rich county, Montgomery County, and yet there are pockets of poverty that are well served by organizations in our area. And we just wanted to come alongside of those organizations and tell their stories. And so we would go to them and say, look, if you invest like a small amount of money and we create this really great film for you, you can use it for fundraising and you can bring in way more than it's going to cost to pay us to do that. And we've been doing that ever since. So, and we're kind of the go-to filmmakers for local social service organizations, and something we just love to do. We rarely turn them down because it just means so much to us as well. So, yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah, and just meeting the people that are involved in these organizations. And we've done several films for the public library here. If you've been to the Broad Theater, you've probably seen some commercials that we've created for the library. And then Keystone Opportunity Center, Manna on Main Street. We've done work for the Indian Creek Foundation right down the street that serve developmentally disabled people in our community, Habitat for Humanity. And, you know, every time we just walk away feeling like we've been around some of the best people in the world that are serving some of the most needy people in the world. And that's just incredibly gratifying. Because that was really part of our...
Right here.
Yeah,
Right
There's
here.
something
That's right in our
special about that
Right.
too, where it's
Yeah.
like it's happening on a like hyper local level.
Right.
Something really cool, and maybe you know. So I know there's something really cool there, but I don't know the ins and outs
Yeah.
like you guys do now. That's really a special gift.
Yeah. Yeah, Keystone Opportunity Center, probably a mile and a half from here. They call themselves the best known secret in the community, but we feel like we've helped them tell their story, either online, social media, or we've been part of some of their larger events for fundraising. And just, again, the people we've met and making those stories have been extraordinary.
It's fantastic.
So that's where it started.
Yeah.
So, but then from there, it's literally gone global. So David did some missions projects before we kind of started working together, but we've been working with Vision Video in Skipback for, gosh, more than 10 years
Oh,
now,
yeah,
and
12.
we've been able to create a number of feature-length documentaries for them as well. So basically, we do everything from sitting down with an older person whose family wants them to record some fascinating parts of their lives to leave a legacy behind, to creating feature-length documentaries in far-flung places around the world. So it's really diverse. We work with local businesses, Delaware Valley Family Business Center right here in Telford. We come alongside and do work with them all year round. They have a number of forums that they do, 4 or 5 every year, and we record those, and just a great bunch of people. So we do work for corporations in creating videos that would be on a website. So we do literally everything. So, and just the two of us, which is the hard part.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about. So
Yeah.
I love you both very much, and I don't know if I've ever met two people that are more different than the two of you guys.
Good, very astute.
Very
Very astute observation.
And you guys are also this is special because, at least as far as I know, you'll be the only couple that I'm interviewing.
Okay.
For season 2. But yeah, I just wanted to ask about like what are those dynamics like to have like a working relationship with not just working, but there's a added level when you're invested and it's your own venture and you're doing it together. And then you got to go from that to like being parents and grandparents and husband and wife and very different giftings,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And it's been 12, 13 years of this.
Yeah.
And then a previous business before that even.
Right.
You guys, I tell you what. Tell
It's a
me
miracle.
about what that's been like.
Well, we already had a fight this morning about this podcast.
Uh-oh.
I'm serious. So we recovered well. So no,
Well,
serious.
it's interesting because I'm in the business, the gas pedal, and Kathy's the brake, and a car needs both to function well. So obviously that's going to put us in tension from time to time. So when I've got the foot on the gas, sometimes she's pressing the brake or just taps the brake at an inappropriate time, and so it could put us into conflict. And I think some of the best and worst aspects of our marriage are the fact that we're in business together, because I can't imagine doing this without Kathy. You really need at least two people. In fact, most documentary film teams, they're 4, 5, 6 people. But I couldn't do it without her. The fact that we're basically together means all the money we earn goes under one roof rather than me paying someone else. So there's some advantages to that financially. But I think probably most importantly is what we experience, because as we've traveled the world, and Kathi always does our interviews, so I'm kind of typically where Danielle is, behind the camera, and Kathy's interviewing people. So she gets to sit down and have conversations. Well, Kathi, tell us what that's like.
That's my favorite part of what we do, is sitting eyeball to eyeball with people and asking them questions, and then as they answer, coming up with more questions based on what they've just asked me, and just really, diving deep into who they are and what makes them tick. So the hardest part of that is when they tell something emotional, is not crying. You're not
But
supposed
that's
to
great.
cry. But no, you're not supposed to. As an interviewer, you're supposed
I've
to
actually
remain
cried
neutral.
several times already.
You need
No.
that
But
tissue?
yeah,
I only used it once.
No, it's a pretty remarkable thing about what we do. So, and when I'm asking questions, David is literally at the camera behind me, or like right over my shoulder, and he'll get to throw in some questions too. And so we work together, but it's just a really incredible thing. But going back to your original question, I think it's really hard. I remember our oldest daughter said, if my husband and I worked together, we'd kill each other in a week, is what she said. So, I mean, it is hard. So, because you don't ever really step away from it, it's what you do. Most people, when they wake up with their spouse first thing in the morning, you have two totally different jobs. And, you can maybe tell Mary something about what you're doing, but she's not in the business.
Oh, she
with
does
you.
not care. I'm just kidding. She does care. Mary actually always says that she wishes I would share more.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's just peanut butter, babe. It's like, well, who cares?
It is not
Like,
just.
get over it, babe.
It is not just
No, I'm just
peanut
kidding.
butter. So, but literally, it's with us like 24/7. So we're often, before we pray to go to bed at night, we'll get on a topic about the business as we're falling asleep. So, and it's there first thing in the morning. So, which is a good thing. But it can also be like, sometimes we just need a break from talking about business.
Well, the
So-
stories really become a part of us.
Yeah.
We're doing as we were expressing earlier, a film about a Holocaust survivor who was part of what was called the Kindertransport, where about 10,000 Jewish children from Germany and Eastern Europe were able to flee right before World War II started.
And I believe you shared that you guys are doing a documentary on one of these children that
Yeah.
survived, that's now in her 90s.
Yeah, she's 93. Her name is Hannah Miley, and we are on weekly
Hannah
calls.
Miley?
Hannah Miley.
Hannah Miley.
Do you know
No,
what Hannah
but it's
Miley?
just making me think of Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana. But obviously, that's not the direction of the documentary.
No. Yeah, maybe we could use that as theme music. I don't know.
I see a movie poster.
Yeah. So just working on that, getting to know her, going to the place where her parents were gassed and documenting that.
Jeez, yeah.
It's just, these are life-changing experiences for us, and the fact that we get to experience them together. But her message of reconciliation and forgiveness, and how she was able to forgive the German people. I mean, these narratives are so core to what our world needs right now. So it's just, we find it so compelling to be able to tell those stories together.
Yeah, I'm getting chills like crazy thinking about that. When does that one come out? When are you shooting for?
Well, great question. we typically don't do a big festival run with our films. We might enter 2 or 3 festivals. In fact, our William Penn film, little plug, just won bronze at the, Daniel, you were there,
ICVM.
ICVM, International Christian Visual Media Festival. It was
Oh,
at
very cool.
and
Congratulations.
yeah, you're
I
welcome.
saw
Thank
that
you.
one.
Appreciate that.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a ton
Yeah.
about William Penn. I'm like, I live right here. I knew none of this.
Yeah, you came to watch it. You and Blaine were there.
Yep.
So that, working on that project was deeply meaningful for us. And
So when is it coming out?
so we won a festival. So we're entering probably 25 festivals with this film. And we're hoping through the festival run, we're going to find a distributor. So the distribution, whoever selects it, that's going to be part of kind of the when question when we release it. But we definitely will do a showing at Broad Theater once it's out.
That's where I will look to see it.
Yeah.
There we go.
My buddy Kyle Hoff.
Yeah.
We did his episode that just came out last week.
Yeah, good one. Very good one.
But yeah, I love that you guys partner with Broad Theater for stuff because.
Well, and he's been
that's my
so
favorite
generous
place.
to us, and how we needed an extra theater because we had so many people coming, and they just moved things around and, kept the price low for us. So yeah, he's been so cooperative with community filmmakers.
Is this typically how you guys will work it, where you'll do the film festival thing and look to find a distributor through that, or is this unique for this one?
Not typically. Yeah, typically we'll release it and then enter it in festivals, maybe 2 or 3 festivals will enter our film. But this we're hoping, because we've entered it in some big ones, like the Toronto International Film Festival, Cannes Film Festival, South by Southwest, we're going to enter that one. The New York Doc Festival, we just entered that. So these are significant global festivals, the Sheffield Festival in the UK. And some of these, if you win in your category, are recognized, that qualifies you to enter them in for Academy Award consideration, which is something that would be extraordinary.
Tell you what. Do you feel like this film that you guys are working on now has maybe more of a chance of winning some of these awards, some of these festivals than previous films you've done? Is that why you're entering it in so many, or is that because of just experience and knowing this is kind of how you play the game now that you're 12, 13 years in, or just curious about that?
Yeah, I think there's a number of factors that make us feel like this film could go bigger than some of our other ones. One of them is the topic. There's not many Holocaust survivors left. So she's 93 and in surprisingly good health. So, but there's been, especially when you consider what's happening in Israel right now with the war with Hamas, Israel is in the news. So anything that has a topic that includes the Jewish people, it's
course.
definitely of interest. There's such a resurgence of interest in World War II. So I think that's. I think those are 2 things, and one just little kind of teeny piece of the puzzle is we worked with a textiles artist from Manchester, England. And so this woman whose story we're telling had just a couple of pictures from her childhood. And so we needed visuals, and so we partnered with a woman her grandmother came on the Kinder transport as well. So the film throughout, you'll see these beautiful textile pieces of art that she created that support the story, and it just lends just a very unique feel to the story itself. So we just feel, and then we also had a composer score the entire thing. First time we've ever created a documentary with one composer. So
And she's unbelievably
so,
good.
and this is her first project as well.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot to it that we feel is could make it go bigger than some of our other films. So we're very excited. So
Yeah, indeed.
That's so cool. Oh my word. Man, I'm so excited for that to come out. I can't wait to see it. It's got to be like emotionally wrenching to
It is.
even like interview this person and tell a story like on this level.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, man, yeah, I think that's gonna bring a ton of value, ton of interest, and tell a story that deserves to be told.
Yeah.
So yeah, kudos to you guys for telling it.
Yeah, thank you. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the subject of the Holocaust certainly is not new to people. but some of the smaller narratives and things that took place. In fact, there's just more and more films coming out that look at some of the more subtle things that took place that were kind of behind the scenes that people don't know about, that have just rich drama associated with them and are just heart-wrenching. I mean, imagine you're 7 years old and you say goodbye to your parents and you never see them again. And you spend the next 10, 12 years of your life, like Hannah did, thinking her parents abandoned her and having to deal with that. So there's so much in the human drama of her story that we explore. We spent 5 days with her interviewing. So we went in depth. And it was, Kathy's the writer, she spent I don't know how many hours initially getting the story down to 3 hours, and we were originally thinking 90 minutes max, so we had to figure out a way to cut 90 minutes out of the film. We cut out another hour, and that still wasn't enough, so it was quite a struggle to get the story down where we could still keep the core elements, things that we just couldn't live without, but then figure out what the story could live without and still be powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You mentioned before about like praying before bed and stuff like that. So I know you guys are both people of faith, and something I'm going for with the Nuttycast here, season 2, which it really, really sounds like small potatoes now that I'm like talking to you guys who like actually
all.
know what you're doing.
Not at
But
all.
so I'm going for a little bit of like a how I built this kind of thing, NPR podcast about small businesses and where they came from, and they're super successful now, in most cases. But so like how I built this with a little bit of like a faith component. So how does your faith inform what you guys do at Global Story Films, or how would things be different at your business if it wasn't for your faith? And I know you guys are both people of faith, but I know you also have different versions of that faith. It's just another unique dynamic that you guys have.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot in our spiritual journey, but there's some very distinct commonalities that we share, and I feel both of us really resonate with films that are telling stories about things that are closest to the heart of God.
Yeah,
And within that context, forgiveness, reconciliation, mercy, stories of, we've done 2 documentaries that deal, they're biographical pieces about a father wound and how that was recovered. I mean, we did a film on St. Patrick's Day, and just his whole story of how he went into Ireland and he didn't come in with the sword. Most of Europe, virtually all of Europe, Christianity spread by the sword, where he came in humbly.
He came in with the green beer.
With the green beer, and that does it. That does it.
Okay.
And a shamrock in the
I'm
other
glad I
hand.
have that
That
right.
disarmed all the high kings, and he turned all their rivers green. So he built relationships with the high kings throughout Ireland, and put himself in a very vulnerable position, and sought, because there's all these warring factions, and he, using the concepts of the gospel and restoration and forgiveness, how do we come together as a people? And so that was core to his, and looking at their religious faith, what they believed, and trying to build on that rather than condemn it, which was different than a lot of missions that went out condemning what was there indigenous to the people. He went in to find complements and bridges to take them from what they believed to a knowledge about Jesus. So all of these themes are so central to what we feel God has done in our hearts, and so central to his story. I mean, the whole story of the cross is about reconciling and forgiveness and bringing people together. Jesus' message to his disciples, was about unity and about love. So as we've been able to tell so many stories in that regard, we feel like that's what just so motivates us. These are stories that are important and are central to God's heart, we feel.
I think it informs what we do, but I think it also informs how we do it. So I think the fact that we're a couple, I know that we've had organizations hire us, and one of the reasons that they said they chose us is because we're a couple. I think marriages today are, I mean, no marriage is without its struggles. So I think there's a part of our testimony is being able to work together at something and still stay married.
Yes, it is. That's quite the testimony.
It is.
Yeah.
So I think it does mean something.
I'm kind of kidding, but I
Yeah.
also
Oh,
think
no.
people do see that and are like,
Yeah,
that's a testimony.
yeah.
Well, we do work for Delaware Valley Family Business Center, and when someone comes to them and wants to start a family business, they do all they can to try to discourage them and say, unless you absolutely, totally feel it's necessary, you may not want to do this. And they list the reasons because it's a challenge, whether it
Yeah.
be your spouse or your brother or whatever.
Brother.
Yeah.
There we go. Uh-oh.
Maybe I've made a mistake. Jesse and I actually met with those guys a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And they're like, you know what? This is good that you're coming to us now
Yeah.
to talk about, bigger picture things before there's like issues. And
Yeah.
I'm really thankful and proud to say like Jesse and I don't have issues, but there's stuff that we're like looking at down like the future where it's like, I don't want to, I want to set us up and set the company up for as much success as we can.
Yeah.
I don't want either one of us to accidentally or intentionally, mess something up,
Yeah.
mess the other one up because we do have to have, family dinner together and
Yeah.
stuff. And like, yeah, we're still brothers, still love each other, dare I say, love him.
Well, and you're
I
doing it
guess.
at a perfect time. You're doing preemptive work rather than when things are falling apart.
Yeah.
Because that's what often has happened is we've gotten to know Sally and Hank over there that, they have to come in. I mean, there's certain companies where they can't even have a board meeting unless they're there to help because there's so much tension. But
Yeah.
they've been able to help so many people in the community, and we feel it's been a privilege to be able to help them, and then to get to know the stories of some of the family businesses that are here locally, and you drive by them all the time, and what they went through.
And you're like, wow, there's really a lot of dirt in that place. Nutty Novelties, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, and your story, I mean, I still remember being in house church, as you were kind of wringing your hands, you were abruptly let go of your job and you were launched.
Yeah.
I mean, I was launched kind of the same way. I was let go from the last position I had unexpectedly.
Yep.
And that pushed me out of the nest. And so, as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's those crises, those unwanted experiences that put us in a place where we have to perform.
Yep.
We have to make it work. And so because you have to, you figure out a way. And with Kathi there, we were in those circumstances. Well, how are we going to make this work? We've got rent to pay, and we have got debts to pay, and then, partnering with God, and just a whole lot of hard work and determination.
And prayer.
And prayer. Yeah.
I mean, literally,
Yeah.
that is just an integral part of how we do business, is because we can pray together before we go to bed and pray together before we eat breakfast. We are often praying about our work because we really, truly want our work to be excellent. And anybody who's a follower of Jesus, I think we're called to do that. So we want to be honest in what we do. We feel like we hold ourselves to a very high standard because of our faith. And hopefully it's reflected in our work for the companies that we work for. We truly want them. We want to be a reflection of Jesus to the companies that hire us.
Amen.
Yeah, I tell you what, you guys got great answers. That's excellent. One last question, because I
Okay.
don't want to go on for hours and hours, but this has been great. But an added dynamic to everything else that you guys already have going on, Dave, you've been very vocal about your cancer diagnosis. I want to say maybe a year and a half ago.
A little over 2 years now.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be the first to say, like, just owning a small business in general feels super hard and challenging all the time. Anyway, and I've been blessed with great health, and I'm truly thankful for that. In fact, some of what I've seen in your journey on social media and stuff, I'm like, man, thank God I don't have to spend 3-4 hours today getting a vitamin C transfusion, right? or
Infusion.
infusion. Excuse me.
Yeah, they leave my blood in. Yeah.
I don't
And mix
know,
it
man.
with some vitamin C.
Don't look to me for medical advice. So yeah, tell us a little bit about. So I want to hear about the challenges. which I can hardly imagine. But I also, maybe you have an answer for this, or maybe you don't. Have there been any gifts in the 2 years of realizing you have cancer and this is a huge problem to try and work through and hopefully find healing, but maybe not? Have there been any gifts in this time?
Yeah, great question. Kathy and I were kicking that around earlier today. I guess primarily is really being able to observe how much we're loved by our family and our friends. We could spend quite a while here talking about people that have, whether it be a book or some advice or significant amount of money, we've chosen to do alternative treatments. So virtually everything has been out of pocket. So we've spent tens of thousands of dollars, and people in our community have supported us. In fact, some of our local businesses that we do work for have supported us financially. In fact, we were concerned, well, should we tell them, I have cancer? I mean, they might think, well, we need to go with someone more healthy. Just the opposite.
I don't want to catch it.
Yeah, just the opposite has been true. I mean, one organization, LTI in Hatfield, they were like, whatever we can do to make sure, and we had a large contract with them, but whatever we can do to make sure your health is a priority, we want to do that, not these films. And we were able to finish them, and they were happy. But we've seen things like that in our community that have been extraordinary. But I don't know, Kathy, if you want to hop in.
You ask about challenges. I think probably the greatest challenge that it presents is when you get a diagnosis of cancer or any disease that can be life-changing or life-ending, you stop and you reevaluate. So what's on my bucket list? Where am I spending my best time? Should I be working any longer? Should I just close up shop and travel the world and do these things that I, may not ever get a chance to do?
Yeah.
But I think we had to really, in our many, many, many hours of processing this, come to the realization that what we do gives us purpose. So, and especially for David, so it's not a job, what we do. So this makes, being a filmmaker makes David feel alive. This is who he is. He is a filmmaker. And that's not his occupation. That is what gives him purpose. That's what makes him feel alive. He loves making films. So for him to shut off that part of who he is so that we could, sit around and think about the diagnosis, that was not an option. So we've chosen not to slow down. So there's some struggles that I feel because I think I watch sometimes when he's very weary. He took 25 radiation treatments up in New York City, and that wreaked havoc on our schedule, and that meant that he would come back and have to kind of pick up the pieces of what he was editing before he left. So the logistics of the treatments that we've chosen, we spent 3 weeks about a month after his diagnosis in Mexico. We had never taken a longer time away from home than that 3-week period of time. But it was life-changing for us.
Yeah.
So
that was a gift.
What was
That
it
was
next
a
to it?
gift.
Was that a vacation or was that for
no,
work?
that was at Hope for Cancer.
At a clinic.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it
Clinic.
was
Gotcha.
3 weeks of very intensive treatment
Wow.
on the beach in Mexico. So it was.
So there were some perks.
The treatment
There were
was
some
excellent.
perks.
Oh yeah,
There
and
were
that
some
was
perks.
part of it. It's very
Yeah.
intentional because when you were done like at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, they wanted you to go to a place where you can heal. The ocean is healing.
Gosh,
Walking in
yeah.
the sand
Yeah,
is
yeah,
healing. Being away from, because when I was doing the New York thing, I'd run up there. It was 2 or 3 hours to get there, 2 or 3 hours home. Where there, we'd walk across the street back to the hotel. And boy, if we would recommend to anyone, if somehow, some way, if you've gotten a cancer diagnosis, get away and go to a clinic where you can just literally be loved on and learn about your body and how it works and how it heals.
But far and away, the challenges are overshadowed by the gift of how this has enriched our lives. Most people would say you're insane. So to even think about it being a gift. When we first got his diagnosis, his sister said, David, I just want to encourage you to look at this as a gift.
Oh, really?
And so
Yeah.
when we feel discouraged, when we're weary, when David's physically weary, when I'm weary of helping to keep him alive, we go back to the fact that there are such rich gifts in this journey. Friendships, as David said, people loving us in ways that we never thought we could be loved before. We just take more joy in just day-to-day living than I think we would have had we not gotten that diagnosis.
Yeah.
So, and for as long as God allows us to keep doing our business, whatever that looks like, whether it's part-time, full-time, whatever it is, we're going to keep doing what we do as long as he gives us strength.
Amen.
Amen. Tell you what, this has been inspiring.
Yeah, thanks for letting us tell our story.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt a little weird asking that question about the gift, but I'm really glad I did, because this is going to be corny, but that was a gift to hear that answer from you guys.
Well, and it's just, again, we could go on and on with that aspect of it. Just yesterday, I was on a sport group call, and someone had just been diagnosed, and all of us had been there,
Yeah.
and we were able to just talk her through it because it was a shock. She's young; she's in her mid-30s, and so to feel like, someone
That's not supposed to happen to young and spry folks like myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's becoming more and more common. But to just be with her, let her talk her heart, tell her what was on her heart, just really meant a lot to us. And that was a gift. And really to be, when you especially have life-threatening cancer, it's one thing to have skin cancer, but when, it could possibly end your life early, that kind of gives you a whole new perspective on life, and certainly a new perspective on those that are facing life-threatening chronic diseases, whether that be cancer or heart disease or something else. So in that way, the empathy and understanding that I've gained through my own experience is gifted me in a way that I didn't expect or maybe want in the beginning, in a special way that I can help other people, that are facing a new diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's always something about whatever super hard thing you're going through, like getting to be there a few steps ahead of the next person.
Right.
That God puts in your life at whatever time, for whatever reason. And you're like, oh, not that makes it all okay, or to be like, oh, I'm glad I have cancer now, but to be like, you know what, this is a gift that I get to, like, I've been there. I've gotten the bad news of the diagnosis, and like I understand this, and I can be there to listen and support, and I'm gonna start crying if I keep thinking about it. But thank you guys so much.
Oh, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for being on and sharing and bringing us to a whole new level of professionalism here on the Nuttycast. Is there any last things you might like to share about, personal, business, film you're working on, a film that you've done that you really loved? Any last thoughts or words?
I guess directing it back toward you with what you're doing with your podcast is, I think it's extremely important. And virtually all podcasts start small and grow. And so you're trying to grow something. But I think storytelling is just key to our future as human beings. And taking time to listen to stories. And I feel like what's happening as it relates to news is more and more people are moving away from news bites that are often out of context, but are more drawn to people telling their stories. And so I think what you're doing is part of that movement, where people are going to go for their news and inspiration to podcasts, where they can literally sit with someone and listen to their story.
Yeah.
And that's the problem right now. We're not listening to each other. And so podcasts like what you're doing give us an opportunity to listen. I mean, I listened to Kyle's interview, and I've known Kyle for years, but I learned things about him that were just super important to know.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, continue to be a storyteller. That would be my
Thanks.
final
Yeah, this
words.
has been fun for me. I don't even think it was my idea. I think it was Danielle's idea.
Of course it was.
But I've loved doing it. It's been a blast. We've had some conversations that have been like really meaningful like this, and some that are just like goofy, or whatever. But when you guys talk about like storytelling, I'm right there with you. Like there's something really cool about just hearing and telling and listening to stories. It's like an ancient thing, right? But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's something that you can it can kind of go by the wayside on you if you're not.
It's kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Kathy? Yeah.
One thing we did not mention is that we are in the process of creating a documentary about our cancer journey.
Yes.
So we started it in the car on the way home from the oncologist's office when we got the full news of what was going on. So
Oh my.
that was
like-
after, yeah.
Like
in
the
car.
diagnosis, like the
Yeah, the diagnosis.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
it was like, you whip out the iPhone and do a little like processing. So we have literally filmed little snippets everywhere, and David is currently editing it right now. So
Wow.
it's gonna-
Daunting task.
a very daunting task. So making a documentary about yourself.
Yeah. I tell you
Much
what,
easier to
that's
tell
another-
other people's
right?
stories.
And something so personal too.
Yes.
Yeah, very personal.
And hopefully that'll be the fall.
I was going to say, okay, the
The
fall.
fall. So
And you don't know yet exactly about the other one that you're working
Yep.
on. You said, yeah,
Yeah, we'll keep you posted.
yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. All right. Well, Dave and Kathy, thanks again. Gosh, should we end with the stay nutty thing? It doesn't feel right. Let's still do it. Okay. So at the end, at the same time, I'm going to say the part where it's as always, and then we'll all at the same time say stay nutty. Ready? So
Sounds good.
as always, stay nutty.